10 years vanished when Liam walked back into my life as the best man at my sister's wedding. Suddenly, the comfortable life I'd built felt fragile, overshadowed by the ghost of a love I thought I'd buried. Every glance across the crowded room, every shared laugh, reminds me of what we once had and forces me to question if the path I chose was truly the right one. Once Upon a Cozy Night welcomes you to a world of mystery, magic, and just the right amount of drama. So snuggle up, get comfy, and if you love a good story, don't forget to subscribe, because this next tale? Oh, it's one for the books. Yukio traced her fingers over a fresh journal, eyes gleaming with anticipation. Now this, she murmured. This is a story worth reading. With a satisfied smile, she flipped open the cover, eager to devour a new tale of love. Let's begin. I meticulously adjusted the floral arrangements on the church pews, my brow furrowed in concentration as I ensured each stem of white rose and sprig of baby's breath was perfectly placed. Sarah's wedding to Mark was just days away, and as the maid of honor, I felt the weight of responsibility, a pleasant pressure mingled with genuine excitement for my younger sister. The scent of the flowers, a classic and comforting aroma, filled the quiet sanctuary. I smoothed down a stray satin ribbon, my thoughts momentarily drifting from the meticulous planning to the broader implications of the day. The beginning of a new chapter for Sarah, a happy ending I wholeheartedly wished for. Liv, you're a lifesaver, Sarah's voice chirped from behind me, infused with her characteristic bubbly enthusiasm. I turned, a warm smile gracing my lips as I saw my sister practically radiating pre-wedding joy. Everything looks absolutely stunning. Just trying to keep things from descending into total chaos, I replied with a light laugh, though a small pragmatic part of me knew that a certain level of delightful disarray was inherent to any wedding. You know how these things go. Well, you're doing an amazing job, Sarah insisted, giving me a quick hug. Honestly, I don't know what I'd do without you. Just then, the church doors creaked open, and a hush fell over the few people present. And then he walked in. Liam. It was almost cinematic, the way the late afternoon sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, catching the dust motes dancing in the air around him. After 10 years, he was back in Willow Creek, a place I had long associated with his absence. He was taller, his shoulders broader, and a hint of ruggedness had replaced the boyish charm I remembered. Yet the easy, familiar smile that used to make my teenage heart do somersaults was still undeniably there. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, the kind that spoke of a life lived in bustling cities, a stark contrast to the comfortable, slightly worn attire of our small town. He greeted Sarah with a warm, genuine hug, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he said, "Sarah, you look absolutely radiant. Congratulations." Liam. It's so good to see you, Sarah exclaimed, pulling back with a delighted grin. It feels like forever. Then his gaze shifted, his eyes meeting mine across the aisle. A flicker of surprise registered on his face, quickly followed by something else. A complex emotion I couldn't immediately decipher. Was it nostalgia? Regret? Recognition? It was a look that held the weight of our shared history, a silent acknowledgement of the years that had passed and the paths we had taken. The years melted away in that instant, and the carefully constructed wall of polite indifference I had built around my heart felt suddenly flimsy, on the verge of collapse. He was the best man, standing beside Mark, the man my sister was about to marry, and suddenly, the simple task of arranging flowers felt monumental, my hands trembling almost imperceptibly as the ghost of his touch, the memory of intertwined fingers and stolen kisses, resurfaced with startling clarity. "Olivia," he said, his voice a low, familiar rumble that resonated deep within me. It's good to see you." "You too, Liam," I managed, my voice betraying a slight tremor despite my efforts to remain composed. "Welcome back to Willow Creek." "Thank you," he replied, his smile widening just a fraction. "It's been a long time." 10 years, I stated, the number hanging in the air between us like a tangible thing. 10 years of missed birthdays, of silent Christmases, of lives lived separately, yet always with a faint echo of the other in the back of our minds. The air in the church suddenly felt thick with unspoken words, a silent dialogue of what-ifs and could-have-beens. I tried to refocus on Sarah, who was now chatting animatedly with Mark about the seating arrangements, but my gaze kept being drawn back to Liam, the magnetic pull of his presence a force I hadn't anticipated and couldn't easily resist. He was here, in our small town, back in my orbit, and the carefully constructed walls around my heart were not just crumbling, they were threatening to shatter completely. The wedding, meant to be a celebration of my sister's new beginning, was stirring up a potent reminder of my own past, a past that had suddenly walked back through the church doors. The wedding rehearsal dinner at the Willow Creek Inn felt like stepping into a time capsule, each corner of the familiar establishment whispering echoes of Liam and my shared youth. The scent of honeysuckle that climbed the trellis outside the patio, the soft glow of the fairy lights strung across the garden where we had once shared furtive teenage kisses. Every detail served to amplify the bittersweet memories swirling within me. Sitting across the long, elegantly set table from Liam felt both intensely familiar and utterly surreal. Every accidental brush of our hands as we reached for bread rolls, every shared glance during Mark's slightly embarrassing toast, was a stark reminder of our deeply intertwined history. We'd grown up practically next door to each other, our childhoods an inseparable tapestry woven with shared scraped knees, whispered secrets under backyard forts, and the innocent, burgeoning feelings of first love. I vividly remembered stolen kisses under the dimly lit bleachers after high school football games, the comfortable silence we shared while stargazing by the riverbank, the ambitious, slightly naive promises we had made under the sprawling branches of the old oak tree by the creek, dreams of a future that had seemed so certain, so intertwined, before life had intervened. That future had fractured when Liam accepted a scholarship to a university across the country, a decision that, at the time, had felt like the natural progression of our lives, but which had ultimately created a distance that grew with each passing year as his burgeoning career in finance took him even further away, to bustling cities and a world I couldn't fully imagine. Now, listening to his easy, engaging laughter as he recounted amusing anecdotes from our high school days with Sarah and Mark, I felt a sharp pang of longing for the uncomplicated joy and effortless camaraderie we had once shared. He was charming, witty, the life of the pre-wedding party, and for fleeting moments, I could almost convince myself that the intervening decade hadn't happened, that we were still the same two kids navigating the complexities of young love in our small town. Later that evening, after the last of the dinner guests had departed, I found myself in the inn's tranquil garden, helping Sarah finalize the seating chart under the soft glow of the patio lanterns. Liam, seemingly drawn by the quiet solitude, joined me. The cool night air was a welcome contrast to the warmth of the reception, and the silence between us felt less strained than it had earlier, tinged with a hesitant curiosity. "Beautiful garden," Liam commented, his gaze sweeping over the manicured flower beds. "It hasn't changed much." "No," I agreed, tracing a finger along the edge of the seating chart. "Some things here stay the same. And others don't," Liam added softly, his eyes meeting mine. "No," I echoed, a lump forming in my throat. We fell silent for a moment, the unspoken questions hanging heavy in the air. Then, Liam broke the silence. "So," he began, his voice carrying a note of genuine curiosity, "you're still at the bookstore?" "Yes," I replied, a small smile touching my lips. "Still surrounded by stories. It suits me." "I remember you always loved to read," Liam said, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "I always thought you belonged surrounded by books." "And you belonged in the city, making your mark on the world," I countered, the words coming out before I could fully process them. A shadow crossed Liam's face. "Did I?" he asked, his gaze drifting away. "Sometimes I wonder." The honesty in his voice surprised me. It was a vulnerability I hadn't expected, a crack in the polished facade he had presented since his return. "What do you wonder?" I asked softly, my heart beating a little faster. He turned back to me, his eyes searching mine in the dim light. "I wonder if I made the right choices," he admitted, his voice low and earnest. "I wonder if chasing a certain kind of success was worth missing out on other things." Our conversation drifted deeper, touching on the reasons we had drifted apart years ago. The distance, the differing ambitions, the lack of effort on both sides to bridge the growing gap. There were no accusations, no blame assigned, just a quiet acknowledgement of the past and a hesitant exploration of the present. The echoes of our shared history were growing louder, resonating in the quiet of the Willow Creek Inn garden, and I knew, with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified me, that the past was not ready to stay buried. The days leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of activity, a vibrant tapestry of shared tasks and bustling energy. I found myself constantly crossing paths with Liam, the close proximity and shared purpose creating an unavoidable intimacy that both thrilled and unsettled me. A shared task of carrying heavy boxes of decorations from the church basement, a brief brush of hands while reaching for the same bottle of champagne during the reception setup, a moment of standing shoulder to shoulder as we both admired the florist's intricate arrangements. Each accidental touch, each fleeting moment of physical closeness, sent a jolt of electricity through me. reawakening dormant sensations and reminding me of the easy comfort we had once shared. I couldn't help but notice the way he looked at me sometimes, a lingering gaze that held a question I couldn't quite decipher, a mixture of warmth and a hint of something akin to longing. It was a familiarity that both comforted and unsettled me, a reminder of the deep connection we had forged in our youth, a connection that seemed to have survived the test of time and distance. During a late-night decorating session at the reception hall, after Sarah and Mark had retired for the evening, Liam and I found ourselves alone, untangling a particularly stubborn string of fairy lights that had become inexplicably knotted. The silence between us was thick with unspoken words, a palpable tension that was both uncomfortable and undeniably magnetic. The soft glow of the overhead lights cast long shadows, creating an intimate atmosphere that heightened my awareness of him. "This is ridiculous," I said, my voice a little breathless as I struggled with the tangled wires. "How did these even get like this?" "They have a life of their own, I think," Liam replied, his voice close to my ear as he reached to help. Our fingers brushed, a fleeting contact that sent a shiver down my spine. "Easy for you to say," I retorted, trying to maintain a light tone. "You're not the one who's going to spend the next hour trying to fix them." "I'm here to help," Liam said, his gaze meeting mine. "Besides, I'm pretty good at untangling things." "Oh, really?" I raised an eyebrow, a playful smirk tugging at the corner of my lips. "Is that a metaphor for something?" Liam chuckled, his eyes sparkling. "Maybe," he said, his voice low. "Or maybe I just have a lot of experience with knots." As we worked together, our conversation drifted from the immediate task at hand to more personal territory. He spoke of his life away from Willow Creek, his career successes, the fast-paced, demanding world he had inhabited for the past decade. But I sensed a hint of something missing, a void that mirrored the one I often felt in my own life. He spoke of his travels, his accomplishments, but there was a certain lack of passion in his voice when he described his current job, a stark contrast to the enthusiasm he exhibited when reminiscing about our shared past. "It sounds exciting," I said, trying to sound genuinely impressed. "It is, in a way," Liam replied, his gaze drifting towards the window, where the first hints of dawn were beginning to paint the sky. "But sometimes it feels like I'm running on a treadmill, chasing something that's always just out of reach." "And what is it that you're chasing?" I asked softly, my curiosity piqued. Liam turned back to me, his eyes searching mine in the dim light. "I'm not sure anymore," he admitted, his voice tinged with a hint of self-doubt. Maybe I was chasing the wrong things all along." The vulnerability in his voice touched me, reminding me of the boy I had known, the boy who had once shared his dreams and fears with me under the vast expanse of the night sky. The years may have changed us, but the core of who we were, the connection we shared, seemed to remain intact. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day of wedding preparations, I found myself seeking a moment of quiet solitude on the porch of my childhood home. The air was cool and crisp, a welcome respite from the bustling energy of the wedding festivities. I sat on the porch swing, the familiar creak a comforting sound, and gazed up at the stars, their distant light a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the smallness of my own worries. Liam joined me a few minutes later, his footsteps soft on the wooden planks. The silence between us was less strained than it had been in the first few days after his arrival, a comfortable quiet born of shared history and a growing sense of understanding. We sat side by side, the porch swing swaying gently, the only sound the chirping of crickets and the distant hooting of an owl. "Beautiful night," Liam said softly, his gaze also fixed on the stars. "It is," I agreed, a small smile touching my lips. Willow Creek nights always were. We talked about our shared childhood memories, laughing at old anecdotes, the kind of stories that only people who had grown up together could truly appreciate. We reminisced about the time we had tried to build a raft and sail it down the creek, only to end up soaking wet and covered in mud. We recalled the time we had snuck out of the house to watch a meteor shower, lying side by side in a field, our eyes wide with wonder. We spoke of the people we used to be, the dreams we had once shared, the hopes and fears that had shaped our young lives. He asked about my life in Willow Creek, my work at the local bookstore, the relationships I had formed over the years. When I mentioned a past relationship that hadn't worked out, I noticed a flicker of something akin to relief in his eyes. "It sounds like you've built a good life here," Liam said, his voice thoughtful. "It's comfortable," I replied, the word echoing my earlier conversation with him. "There's that word again," Liam said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Is that all you're looking for, Olivia? Comfort. The question hung in the air, a challenge and an invitation all at once. I turned to look at him, my heart pounding softly in my chest. What else is there? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. As the night deepened, our conversation grew more personal, the surface-level pleasantries giving way to a more honest and vulnerable exchange. We touched on the reasons we had drifted apart, the distance that had grown between us as our lives had taken different trajectories. There were no accusations, no blame assigned, just a quiet acknowledgement of the past and a hesitant curiosity about the present. I always thought you'd come back, I admitted, my voice barely audible. I always thought you'd come back to Willow Creek. I wanted to, Liam said, his voice earnest. But life got in the way. Ambition got in the way. And now? I asked, my eyes searching his. What's in the way now? Liam turned to face me, his eyes searching mine in the soft glow of the porch light. Nothing, he said, his voice low and sincere. Nothing is in the way now. For the first time since his return, I allowed myself to truly see him, not just as the ghost of my first love, but as the man he had become, a man who seemed to be grappling with the same questions, the same longings that I was. The past was whispering its secrets in the quiet of the night, and I knew, with a growing sense of anticipation and a touch of trepidation, that the future was about to unfold in ways I couldn't yet imagine. As Liam's gaze lingered on mine, a comfortable silence settled between us, a silence pregnant with unspoken possibilities. The gentle rhythm of the porch swing seemed to underscore the hesitant beat of my own heart. The ease with which we had fallen back into conversation, the shared laughter over old memories, had chipped away at the carefully constructed barriers I had erected over the years. Could it be possible? Could there still be something real between us after all this time? The thought, both exhilarating and terrifying, hung in the night air. The wedding day dawned bright and clear, a picture-perfect backdrop for Sarah's new beginning. Yet, for me, the radiant sunshine felt almost mocking against the subtle turmoil brewing within. The morning was a flurry of activity, a whirlwind of hair and makeup, laughter and nervous jitters. As maid of honor, my focus was ostensibly on Sarah, ensuring every detail was perfect, every need met. I helped my sister into the breathtaking ivory gown, my fingers trembling slightly as I fastened the delicate buttons, a poignant reminder of the many milestones we had shared, and the divergent paths our lives were now taking. Offering words of encouragement felt almost ironic, as my own heart felt anything but steady. Beneath the surface of my carefully constructed composure, a constant awareness of Liam's presence pulsed like a faint ache, a persistent reminder of a love that had never quite died. As the organ music swelled and Sarah, radiant and beaming, began her walk down the aisle on our father's arm, my gaze instinctively flickered towards Liam, standing tall and handsome beside Mark. He looked every bit the supportive best man, his expression one of genuine happiness for his friend. But as our eyes met across the sea of gathered guests, I thought I caught a fleeting, almost imperceptible shadow in his gaze, a momentary stillness that mirrored the quiet storm within me. It was a fleeting glimpse, easily missed, but it resonated deeply within me, confirming the unspoken connection that had been rekindled over the past few days. During the ceremony, as Sarah and Mark exchanged their heartfelt vows, the weight of those two simple words, "I do," pressed down on me. For Sarah and Mark, those words were a joyous declaration of their commitment, the promise of a shared future filled with love and partnership. But for me, standing just a few feet away from Liam, those same words echoed the "I do" that had never been spoken between us, the future we had once dreamed of but never realized, the path we had diverged from a decade ago. Our eyes met again, a brief, intense connection that transcended the sacred vows being exchanged. It was a look that spoke volumes without uttering a single word. A shared understanding of what was, what could have been, and the complex emotions that now bound us in this unexpected moment. The reception, a vibrant and joyous affair held in a beautifully adorned marquee on the sprawling grounds of the Willow Creek Inn, buzzed with celebratory energy. Laughter echoed through the air, the band played upbeat tunes, and guests mingled, raising toasts to the happy couple. But for me, navigating the crowded space felt like traversing a minefield. Every shared glance with Liam across the crowded room, every accidental brush as we moved through the throng of well-wishers, sent a jolt of awareness through me, a potent reminder of the unresolved feelings that simmered beneath the surface of polite conversation and forced smiles. I offered heartfelt congratulations to Sarah and Mark, my genuine happiness for them momentarily eclipsing my own inner turmoil, but the undercurrent of my emotions remained, a persistent ache that threatened to surface with every stolen glance at Liam. Later in the evening, as Sarah and Mark took to the dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife, bathed in the soft glow of the fairy lights, I found myself seeking a moment of quiet near the edge of the marquee, the bittersweet beauty of the scene tugging at my heartstrings. Suddenly, a familiar presence stood beside me. "They look truly happy," Liam said softly, his gaze filled with genuine warmth as he watched the newly married couple sway in each other's arms. "They do," I agreed, my voice a soft echo. "They're perfect for each other." A pang of something akin to envy, quickly followed by guilt, flickered within me. A comfortable yet charged silence settled between us, the romantic melody and the murmur of the celebrating crowd creating a fragile bubble of intimacy. "It feels surreal, doesn't it?" Liam said after a long moment, turning slightly to face me, his expression thoughtful. "Being back here at this moment, after all this time." "Surreal in what way?" I asked, my pulse quickening. "Just seeing how life has unfolded," he replied, his gaze searching mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Different from the dreams we used to share under that old oak tree." "Life rarely follows the script we write for it," I said, a hint of wistfulness coloring my tone. "No, it doesn't," Liam agreed, his eyes never leaving mine. "But sometimes I can't help but wonder if we let our story take a wrong turn somewhere along the way." The unspoken weight of his words hung heavy in the air between us, a silent acknowledgement of the path not taken. Our conversation was momentarily interrupted by Emily, my effervescent best friend, who playfully dragged me away to join a boisterous group photo, pulling Liam along with us. But even as I smiled for the camera, my arm linked with Emily's and Liam standing just beside me, my gaze kept flicking towards him, the unspoken questions and lingering emotions creating a palpable tension that only we seemed to feel amidst the surrounding joy. The celebration of Sarah's "I do" had inadvertently amplified the quiet yearning within me, the persistent echo of a love that had never truly been silenced. As the joyous energy of the reception began to wane, the music softening and the crowd thinning, I noticed Liam slip away from a group of chatting guests and head towards the quieter sanctuary of the garden. I excused myself and followed, finding him seated alone on a wrought iron bench bathed in the soft glow of the garden lanterns, a palpable air of weary contemplation surrounding him. I sat down beside him, the gentle rustling of leaves in the night breeze the only sound for a moment. The earlier festive atmosphere had given way to a more introspective mood, mirroring the shift in our own dynamic. "You looked a little lost in thought," Liam said gently, breaking the comfortable silence. "Just processing everything, I suppose," I replied, offering him a small, tired smile. "It was a beautiful day for Sarah." "It was," Liam agreed, his gaze following mine as I watched the remaining guests bid farewell to the happy couple. "They seem incredibly happy." "They are," I confirmed, a genuine warmth in my voice. "They're perfect for each other." A longer silence stretched between us this time, thicker with the weight of unspoken emotions and the lingering echoes of our earlier conversation. Finally, Liam turned to face me directly, his expression serious and sincere. "Olivia," he began, his voice low and earnest, "being back in Willow Creek witnessing Sarah and Mark's happiness, and most importantly, seeing you again, it stirred up a torrent of emotions I thought I had long since buried. The past few days have been a revelation." My breath hitched. I met his intense gaze, my heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation, nervousness, and a flicker of long-suppressed hope. "Me too, Liam," I admitted softly, my voice barely a whisper above the chirping of crickets. "It's been a lot to process." He reached out, his hand gently covering mine where it rested on the cool metal of the bench. His touch, familiar yet charged with a new intensity, sent a shiver of awareness through me. "Seeing the incredible woman you've become," he continued, his thumb gently stroking the back of my hand, "has made me confront the enormity of what I walked away from all those years ago. Leaving Willow Creek felt like the right thing to do at the time, chasing ambition and a different kind of life. But seeing you now, it's brought everything into sharp focus." Tears welled up in my eyes, a complex mix of sadness for the years we had spent apart and a fragile, budding hope for a different future. "Liam," I began, my voice trembling slightly, "we were so young. We both had dreams, aspirations that seemed to pull us in different directions." "My biggest aspiration, deep down, was always you, Olivia," he interrupted, his gaze unwavering. "I was just too blind, too focused on external validation, to see it clearly until I was miles away, living a life that felt increasingly empty despite its apparent success. A tear escaped my eye and traced a path down my cheek. "I missed you, Liam," I confessed, the words pouring out in a rush, a decade of unspoken longing finally finding voice. "More than words can say. I tried to move on, I built a life here, but there was always this missing piece." "And I missed you, Olivia," he replied, his grip tightening gently on my hand. "Every single day. There hasn't been a significant moment in my life in the past 10 years where I haven't wondered what it would have been like if you had been there to share it." We sat in comfortable silence for a long moment, the weight of our confessions hanging in the air, a tangible acknowledgement of the missed connections and the years we could never reclaim. Then we began to talk in hushed tones, sharing our regrets, the moments we had thought of each other, the paths our lives had taken and the paths we now tentatively dared to imagine walking together. It was a raw, vulnerable, and ultimately cathartic exchange, the dam of unspoken emotions finally breaking. As the first faint streaks of dawn began to illuminate the eastern sky, casting a soft glow over the garden, a fragile bridge of understanding and renewed hope had been built across the chasm of the past. The confessions had been made, the missed connections acknowledged, and for the first time in a long time, the possibility of a second chance felt not just like a distant dream, but a tangible, albeit uncertain, path stretching out before us. The wedding celebrating Sarah's new beginning had inadvertently paved the way for the potential rekindling of our own long-lost love, leaving us both with a fragile sense of hope amidst the lingering complexities of our separate lives. As the first rays of sunlight kissed the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, a silent promise hung in the air between Liam and me, a tentative agreement to explore the uncharted territory of our rediscovered feelings. The day after the wedding possessed a quiet, almost ethereal calm. The whirlwind of preparations and the emotional intensity of the ceremony had subsided, leaving a peaceful stillness in their wake. Sarah and Mark had departed for their honeymoon, their laughter and well wishes still echoing in my memory. The Hayes house felt strangely empty, a stark contrast to the bustling activity of the previous days. Liam was still in town, having offered to help with the post-wedding cleanup, a gesture that felt less like an obligation and more like a desire to linger, to extend his time in Willow Creek, and more importantly, his time with me. He sought me out in the quiet of the morning, finding me in the sun-drenched kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee and staring out at the dew-kissed garden. Our conversation was different now, the tentative awkwardness of his initial arrival replaced by a comfortable familiarity tinged with the electric undercurrent of our late-night confessions. We spoke of the wedding, of Sarah and Mark's obvious happiness, but our gazes often met across the kitchen table, carrying unspoken messages of hope and hesitant anticipation. "Thank you for everything, Liv," Liam said, his voice soft as he leaned against the counter. "You were an amazing maid of honor." "It was my pleasure," I replied, a genuine smile gracing my lips. "They're so happy. It makes all the stress worthwhile." "It does," Liam agreed. "But I was also thinking, thank you for last night. For being so honest." My heart fluttered. "You too, Liam," I said, meeting his gaze. "It was necessary, I think." We spent the afternoon revisiting familiar haunts, a nostalgic journey through the landscape of our shared past. We walked along the winding path by the creek, the gentle murmur of the water a soothing soundtrack to our conversation. We stood beneath the sprawling branches of the old oak tree, tracing the faded initials we had carved into its bark as teenagers, a tangible reminder of our youthful promises. There was a lightness in our interactions, a sense of two souls tentatively finding their way back to a rhythm they had once known so well. Liam shared more about his life away, the professional successes that now felt somewhat hollow in retrospect, the realization that the fast-paced city life hadn't brought him the fulfillment he had expected. He spoke of a growing desire for something more grounded, something rooted in connection and familiarity, a life that looked a lot like the one he had left behind in Willow Creek. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Liam confessed as we sat on a weathered bench overlooking the river, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows. "About what I really want. And I think I've been looking in the wrong places for it." I listened intently, a fragile flicker of hope igniting within me. I didn't dare to fully embrace the possibility of a future with Liam just yet, but the shift in his perspective, the vulnerability he was showing, was undeniable. That evening, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in vibrant hues of orange and pink, Liam surprised me with a picnic basket. He had spread a blanket on a secluded spot overlooking the town, the twinkling lights beginning to appear below. Inside the basket were all my favorite treats. The blueberry scones from Mrs. Gable's bakery, the crisp apple cider from the local orchard, the cheddar cheese and crusty bread we used to share on our teenage adventures. I remembered, Liam said, a warm smile in his eyes as he laid out the food. You remembered everything, I replied, my heart swelling with a tenderness I hadn't felt in years. We ate in comfortable silence, punctuated by soft laughter and shared glances. As the stars began to pepper the night sky, Liam reached for my hand, his touch sending a familiar warmth through me. We sat together, watching the moon rise, the silence between us filled with unspoken promises and the quiet understanding of two hearts tentatively finding their way back to each other. For the first time since his return, the future didn't feel like an insurmountable obstacle, but rather a landscape waiting to be explored, together. Despite the undeniable and growing connection blossoming between Liam and me, the practicalities of our separate lives cast a long shadow over our newfound hope. Liam's life, his established career and commitments, were still rooted in the distant city. My own life in Willow Creek, while it might have felt comfortable at times, was also my reality. My bookstore, my close-knit circle of friends, the familiar rhythm of my small-town existence. The unspoken question of how we could possibly bridge this geographical and life stage gap hung heavy in the air between us, a constant undercurrent beneath our tender moments. Liam had a demanding job waiting for him back in the city, professional obligations he couldn't simply abandon overnight. I had poured my heart and soul into my bookstore, a haven I had painstakingly built over the years. The thought of uprooting my life, of leaving the familiar comfort of Willow Creek, was both daunting and exhilarating. We spent our remaining days together navigating this complex terrain, our conversations a delicate dance between hopeful dreams of a shared future and the stark realities of our present circumstances. There were moments of doubt, fleeting shadows of fear that flickered across my mind. Could I truly trust that Liam wouldn't leave again? Could I risk opening my heart fully only to face the same heartbreak I had endured a decade ago? Liam, too, wrestled with his own internal conflicts. The life he had meticulously constructed in the city, the professional identity he had forged, now felt less appealing, less fulfilling than the quiet moments he shared with me in Willow Creek. But the thought of sacrificing his career, of potentially facing financial uncertainty, was a daunting prospect for him. I wish things were simpler, I confessed one afternoon as we strolled through the town park, the vibrant flower beds a stark contrast to the uncertainty in my heart. Me too, Liam replied, his hand finding mine and squeezing it gently. But maybe complicated is just part of our story. A very long and complicated part, I added with a sigh. We've overcome distance once, Liam reminded me, his gaze earnest. Maybe we can do it again, in a different way this time. We discussed possibilities, tentative plans that felt both exciting and terrifyingly vague. Could I relocate to the city? Could Liam find a way to work remotely, to return to Willow Creek permanently? The questions hung unanswered, each potential solution fraught with its own set of challenges and sacrifices. I couldn't shake the ingrained fear of history repeating itself, the agonizing memory of our slow drift apart years ago. Liam, in turn, seemed torn between the life he had built and the life he now realized he truly yearned for. I don't want to lose you again, Olivia, Liam said one evening, his voice raw with emotion as we stood on my porch, the familiar scent of honeysuckle filling the air. And I don't want to lose you either, Liam, I replied, my own voice thick with unshed tears. But I don't know how we make this work. We'll figure it out, Liam promised, his hand cupping my cheek, his thumb gently brushing away a stray tear. We have to. What we found again. It's too important to let slip away. As the day of Liam's scheduled departure drew closer, a palpable sense of melancholy settled over us like a heavy fog. Every shared moment felt precious, tinged with the bittersweet awareness of our impending separation. The uncertainty of tomorrow loomed large, casting a shadow over the fragile glimmer of hope we had rediscovered. Would our rekindled connection be strong enough to withstand the distance and the demands of our separate lives? Only time would tell, but the question hung heavy in the air, a silent challenge to the fragile bond we had rebuilt. The weight of the impending goodbye threatened to extinguish the newfound spark between us, leaving us both clinging to a fragile hope for a future we couldn't yet see. The day Liam was scheduled to leave Willow Creek arrived with a heavy sense of finality. The morning was filled with a quiet tension, a bittersweet awareness of the impending goodbye. We moved through the motions of breakfast and packing, our conversations stilted, our smiles forced. The air was thick with unspoken fears and the lingering question of what the future held for us. I watched Liam as he placed his suitcase by the door, the simple act carrying a weight far beyond its physical significance. It felt like the closing of a chapter, the end of a beautiful but fleeting dream. We said our goodbyes at the edge of town, a familiar spot where we had often parted ways during our teenage years. But this time, the farewell felt different, heavier, laden with the weight of unfulfilled promises and the fragile hope of a second chance. Liam's eyes searched mine, a mixture of sadness and a desperate plea for reassurance in their depths. I, in turn, struggled to maintain my composure, my heart aching with a profound sense of loss. "I'll call you," Liam said, his voice thick with emotion as he pulled me into a tight embrace. "I know you will," I replied, my voice barely a whisper, though a part of me wondered if this was truly the end. As Liam's car disappeared down the road, leaving a trail of dust in its wake, I felt a familiar pang of loss, the same emptiness I had experienced years ago when he had left for college. This time, however, the feeling was amplified by the rekindled spark between us, the fragile hope we had nurtured, the terrifying possibility that we were letting it slip away again. I stood there for a long moment, watching the road stretch out before me, feeling the weight of my own uncertainty, the fear of remaining rooted in a life that suddenly felt incomplete. But something had shifted within me during Liam's visit. The past few days had reawakened a part of me I thought was long dormant, a sense of passion, a yearning for something more than the comfortable routine of my life in Willow Creek. I realized with a sudden clarity that surprised even myself, that I couldn't simply let him go without a fight, without at least exploring the possibility of a shared future. The thought sparked a surge of adrenaline, a rush of determination that pushed aside my doubts and fears. Impulsively, I got into my own car, my tires kicking up dust as I turned the car around, following the same road Liam had taken. I drove with a single-minded purpose, my heart pounding in my chest, the landscape blurring past me in a rush of movement. I wasn't sure what I would say, what I would do, but I knew I had to try. I had to take a leap of faith. Hours later, I found him at a small, unassuming roadside diner, a place we had often stopped at during our teenage road trips, a poignant reminder of our shared past. Liam was sitting alone at a booth, a half-empty cup of coffee in front of him, his gaze lost in thought, his posture conveying a sense of profound loneliness. My unexpected arrival brought a look of stunned disbelief to his face, quickly followed by a wave of relief that washed over him like a tidal wave. "Olivia," he said, his voice hoarse, his eyes wide with surprise. "What are you doing here?" "I couldn't let you leave like that," I replied, my voice trembling slightly, but my gaze firm. I couldn't just say goodbye and pretend that the past few days didn't happen. Liam stood up, his eyes searching mine, a flicker of hope dancing in their depths. "What are you saying, Olivia?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm saying I'm willing to try," I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. "I'm willing to take a chance on us, Liam. I'm willing to see if we can make this work." The words hung in the air, a fragile promise, a tentative hope. Liam's face broke into a wide, genuine smile, the relief and joy radiating from him. "You don't know how much I wanted to hear you say that," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I was terrified that I was going to lose you again." "You're not going to lose me," I assured him, my hand reaching out to take his. "Not if we both fight for it." In that moment, standing in the middle of that unassuming roadside diner, surrounded by the echoes of our shared past, we confessed our deepest feelings, our vulnerability laid bare, our willingness to take a leap of faith and build a future together, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. The uncertainty of tomorrow still lingered, but it was now overshadowed by a powerful sense of hope, a shared determination to rewrite our story, to give our love a second chance. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but we knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within our hearts, that we were ready to face it, together. The impulsive drive to the diner had been a leap of faith, a turning point that had solidified our commitment to exploring this second chance, and as we held hands in the quiet diner, a sense of hopeful anticipation filled the air, a promise of a future we would build, side by side, in the familiar embrace of Willow Creek. "Olivia," Liam began, his voice thick with emotion as he looked across the small diner table, his hand still clasped tightly in mine. "Are you sure about this? About us?" I squeezed his hand, my gaze unwavering. "Liam, driving here felt like the most natural thing in the world. For 10 years, there's been this quiet ache, this feeling that something was missing. Seeing you again, talking to you. It's like that missing piece has finally clicked into place. I'm scared, yes, of the what-ifs and the challenges. But the thought of letting you drive away again, without even trying, that scares me even more." Liam's eyes softened, a wave of relief washing over his features. God. Olivia. Hearing you say that, it's everything I've been hoping for since I saw you at the church. I was so afraid I'd ruined any chance we ever had. We both made choices, Liam, I said gently. Life took us on different paths. But maybe those paths were always meant to circle back here. A comfortable silence settled between us for a moment, broken only by the clatter of dishes from the kitchen. Then, Liam spoke again, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. So, what happens now? I chuckled softly. Well, I suppose you were planning on heading back to the city. That's still the plan, right? Liam hesitated, his gaze drifting towards the window. It was. But, now that you're here, everything feels different. The thought of getting back on that highway, driving away from you again, it feels impossible. So, what are you saying? I asked, my heart pounding with a mixture of hope and trepidation. I'm saying. Liam took a deep breath, his eyes meeting mine with newfound determination. I'm saying maybe my homecoming to Willow Creek doesn't have to be a temporary visit. Maybe it can be a real homecoming. For good. My breath caught in my throat. Liam. Are you serious? What about your job? Your apartment? My job? Liam paused, considering his words carefully. I've been doing a lot of thinking about that too. The truth is, Olivia, it was a good career, it provided security, but it never truly made me happy. The past few days have reminded me what real happiness feels like. I have some savings, and my company has been talking more and more about remote work possibilities. Maybe I can explore that. As for the apartment, that's just bricks and mortar. Home is where you are. Tears welled up in my eyes, a mixture of disbelief and overwhelming joy. Liam. Let's take this one step at a time, Liam interjected gently, reaching across the table to cup my cheek. I'll still need to go back to the city to sort things out, pack up my apartment, talk to my boss. But the intention is different now. The purpose is different. I want to come back here, Olivia, for you, to see if we can truly make this work. And I want you too, I whispered, my hand covering his. More than anything. So, Liam said, a wider smile now gracing his features. Instead of driving back to the city alone, how about I drive back knowing that there's a real chance for us here? And then, I come back to Willow Creek for good. That sounds perfect, I replied, a tear finally escaping and tracing a path down my cheek. We'll need to be patient, Liam cautioned. It won't be easy. We have 10 years of separate lives to bridge, adjustments to make. We can do it, I said with conviction, my gaze locking with his. If we want it enough, we can do anything. We spent the rest of the afternoon in the diner, talking, planning, our initial uncertainty giving way to a hopeful excitement. Liam called his parents, sharing the unexpected turn of events, their joyful reaction echoing my own burgeoning optimism. We discussed logistics, timelines, the practicalities of Liam's move back to Willow Creek. Maybe you can stay with me at my place, once you're back, I offered tentatively. It's not huge, but I'd love that, Liam said, his eyes filled with warmth. Just being near you again. That's all that matters. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the diner, a sense of quiet determination settled over us. The impulsive leap of faith had landed us on solid ground, a shared commitment to building a future together in the familiar comfort of Willow Creek. The road ahead might have its challenges, but we were ready to navigate it, hand in hand, our second chance finally underway. The drive back to Willow Creek in my car was filled with easy conversation and comfortable silences, the weight of our past replaced by the lightness of shared hope. Liam was still going back to the city, but this time, it wasn't a departure. It was a journey back home to me. The promise of a shared future hung sweetly in the air, a tangible goal that fueled our anticipation for the next chapter of our lives. The following weeks were a delicate dance of bridging the distance. Liam returned to the city, his purpose now sharply defined. He tackled the daunting task of dismantling his life there, packing up his apartment, navigating the complexities of his remote work transition with his company, and saying goodbye to the life he had built over the past decade. Phone calls and video chats became our lifeline, connecting us across the miles, filled with updates on our progress and reassurances of our commitment. The apartment is almost empty, Liam said during one late-night video call, his voice sounding a little weary but undeniably upbeat. It feels strange, like closing a door on a whole chapter of my life. But you're opening a new one here with me, I reminded him, my voice soft and encouraging as I watched his familiar face on my laptop screen. Think of it that way. I am, Liam replied, his gaze softening. Every time I pack another box, I picture unpacking it in Willow Creek with you. I shared updates on my end too, telling him about my days at the bookstore, the familiar faces of my customers, and the quiet rhythm of life in our small town. I found myself noticing things more, little details I wanted to share with him, a beautiful sunset over the lake, a new book I thought he'd enjoy. Our conversations were filled with a comfortable intimacy, a deepening of the connection we had rediscovered. We talked about our hopes for the future, our tentative plans for when Liam returned permanently. Looking at houses, exploring potential joint ventures, simply building a life together. I was thinking, I said one evening, a hint of excitement in my voice. Maybe we could start looking at some of the older houses just outside of town. The ones with a bit of land. I've always dreamed of having a garden. I like the sound of that, Liam replied, his eyes sparkling. I can picture it now. You with your hands in the soil, surrounded by flowers, and me bringing you iced tea. You'd actually do that? I teased. Absolutely, Liam affirmed with a chuckle. Consider it part of my returning to my roots initiative. However, the distance also presented its challenges. There were moments of loneliness, of missing the physical presence of the other, the simple comfort of a shared meal or a quiet evening on the porch swing. Misunderstandings occasionally arose, amplified by the limitations of digital communication. But we learned to navigate these hurdles with patience and understanding, our commitment to making our second chance work serving as our guiding principle. We made an effort to be fully present during our calls, to truly listen to each other, and to offer unwavering support during the sometimes stressful process of Liam's move. This whole thing feels a little surreal sometimes, doesn't it? Liam admitted during one particularly tiring week. Like we're trying to piece together two different puzzles. Maybe, I replied thoughtfully. But the picture on the box looks pretty amazing. Our shared optimism and unwavering belief in our connection helped us weather the challenges of the distance. Each phone call and video chat reinforcing the strength of our rekindled love and fueling our anticipation for the day we would finally be together again in Willow Creek. The day Liam's car finally pulled up the long driveway to my house felt like a dream. The months of separation and anticipation melted away as we embraced, a long, heartfelt hug that spoke volumes about our enduring connection and the journey we had undertaken. Having Liam back in Willow Creek permanently marked the true beginning of our second chance. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm, a blend of familiar routines and new shared experiences. Liam officially transitioned to his remote work, setting up a cozy office space in my spare room. We spent our days working independently but always within easy reach of each other, sharing coffee breaks and lunchtime conversations, our presence a constant source of comfort and support. We began the exciting process of looking for a place to call our own, exploring charming older houses just outside of town, our shared vision for our future taking shape with each property we viewed. We debated the merits of wraparound porches versus sprawling gardens, the charm of original hardwood floors versus the practicality of modern amenities, our discussions revealing our growing ability to compromise and build a shared dream. My bookstore continued to thrive, my passion for literature now infused with a renewed sense of purpose. Liam became my unofficial business advisor, offering his insights and support, and we even began to explore the possibility of hosting author events and expanding my online presence. Our partnership extended beyond our personal lives, weaving into our individual passions and creating a sense of shared purpose within our community. Our relationship deepened beyond the initial spark of our reunion, evolving into a comfortable and enduring partnership built on mutual trust, unwavering support, and a profound love that had weathered the storms of time and distance. We rediscovered the simple joys of small-town life together, attending local festivals, taking leisurely walks through the woods, and hosting cozy dinners with Sarah, Mark, and their growing family. One crisp autumn evening, after spending the day exploring a potential new home nestled amongst the rolling hills outside of town, we returned to my house, the scent of wood smoke filling the air. We sat on the porch swing, the familiar creak a comforting sound as we watched the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. I think I found our garden, I said softly, leaning my head on Liam's shoulder. The backyard of that farmhouse. It was perfect. It was, Liam agreed, his arm tightening around me. I can already picture you out there, surrounded by roses. A comfortable silence settled between us, filled with the unspoken promise of our shared future. Then, Liam turned to face me, his eyes filled with a love that had only grown stronger with time. You know, he said, his voice low and sincere, coming back here, finding you again. It feels like I've finally come home. I smiled, my heart overflowing with a happiness I had once thought was lost forever. Welcome home, Liam, I whispered, my lips finding his in a tender kiss that sealed our second beginning, a promise of a future forged together, rooted in the familiar soil of Willow Creek, and blossoming with the enduring power of a love that had been given a precious second chance to bloom. The days following Liam's proposal were filled with a giddy, almost dreamlike happiness. I couldn't stop looking at the delicate antique ring on my finger, a constant reminder of the love that had found its way back to me. The news of our engagement spread quickly through Willow Creek, met with an outpouring of joy and well wishes from friends and neighbors who remembered our youthful romance and were thrilled to see us find our way back to each other. Sarah and Mark were ecstatic. I called them on their honeymoon, my voice trembling with emotion as I shared the news. Sarah's joyful squeal echoed through the phone line. Oh, Liv. That's wonderful. I knew it. I always had a feeling you two were meant to be. Sarah exclaimed, her happiness radiating through the phone. Mark added his heartfelt congratulations, teasing Liam about finally waking up and realizing what he had. Back in Willow Creek, the wedding planning began, albeit in a relaxed and joyful manner. Liam and I decided on a small, intimate ceremony at the old church where Sarah had gotten married, followed by a reception at our newly purchased farmhouse. We envisioned a celebration that felt authentic to us, a blend of our shared history and our hopes for the future. I always imagined getting married under the oak tree, I confessed to Liam one afternoon as we sat on the porch swing, sketching out potential seating arrangements for the reception. We can still incorporate it, Liam suggested, his arm around me. Maybe we can have a blessing there after the ceremony at the church. We spent hours discussing the details, our planning sessions filled with laughter and shared excitement. I envisioned wildflowers and simple decorations, reflecting the natural beauty of Willow Creek. Liam, ever practical, focused on the logistics, ensuring everything ran smoothly. We agreed that our wedding should be a reflection of our journey, a testament to enduring love, second chances, and the beauty of coming home. The whispers of yes still echoed in my heart, a sweet reminder of the moment our future together became a tangible reality. The day of Liam and my wedding dawned with the same clear, bright sky that had graced Sarah and Mark's ceremony. The atmosphere was filled with a quiet joy, a sense of peaceful anticipation. I, surrounded by Sarah and Emily, felt a sense of calm amidst the usual pre-wedding jitters. As I slipped into my simple yet elegant lace dress, I couldn't help but smile, thinking about the unexpected path that had led me to this moment. The ceremony at the old church was intimate and heartfelt. Our vows, personal and filled with the weight of our shared history and the promise of our future, brought tears to the eyes of many in attendance. Standing at the altar, holding Liam's hand, I felt a profound sense of completeness, a feeling that I had finally come full circle. After the ceremony, we gathered under the sprawling branches of the old oak tree by the creek, just as I had dreamed. Our officiant offered a blessing, their words echoing the enduring love that had taken root in that very spot so many years ago. Surrounded by our closest friends and family, Liam and I exchanged heartfelt smiles, a silent acknowledgement of the journey that had brought us to this beautiful moment. The reception at our farmhouse was filled with warmth and laughter. Fairy lights twinkled in the twilight, wildflowers adorned the tables, and the air was filled with the joyful sounds of celebration. Sarah and Mark offered a touching toast, reminiscing about Liam and my childhood romance and expressing their happiness at seeing us finally find our way back to each other. As Liam and I shared our first dance as husband and wife, swaying gently under the starlit sky, we were surrounded by a circle of love, a testament to the enduring bonds of family and friendship that had supported us on our journey. In that moment, everything felt perfect, our second chance having blossomed into a beautiful and lasting love story. Years passed under the familiar skies of Willow Creek. Liam and I settled into a comfortable and fulfilling life in our farmhouse, our love deepening with each passing season. Our home was filled with warmth, laughter, and the comforting rhythm of our shared routines. My bookstore continued to thrive, becoming a beloved hub in the community, often hosting book clubs and author events at our farmhouse. Liam's remote work provided him with the flexibility to be present in our daily lives, and he found joy in tending to our sprawling garden, often surprising me with bouquets of my favorite wildflowers. Our family circle expanded with the arrival of Sarah and Mark's third child, and Liam and I embraced our roles as doting aunt and uncle, our farmhouse often filled with the happy chaos of family gatherings. We traveled occasionally, exploring new places and creating new memories, but we always found our way back to the familiar comfort of Willow Creek, the place where our love had first blossomed and where it had been given a precious second chance to flourish. One quiet evening, many years after our wedding, Liam and I sat on our porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues. Our hands were intertwined, our silence comfortable and filled with a deep understanding that only years of shared life can bring. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Liam hadn't come back for Sarah's wedding? I asked softly, breaking the peaceful silence. Liam turned to me, his eyes filled with a love that had only deepened with time. I try not to, he said, his thumb gently stroking my hand. Because then I wouldn't have this. He gestured around us, encompassing our home, our life, our love. And I can't imagine anything better. I smiled, leaning my head on his shoulder. Me neither, I whispered. Under the vast expanse of the Willow Creek sky, our second chance had grown into a beautiful and enduring love story, a testament to the fact that sometimes, the greatest journeys lead us right back to where we were always meant to be. Yukio carefully closed the worn leather-bound journal, a satisfied sigh escaping her lips. The pages were filled with Olivia and Liam's story, a testament to the unpredictable nature of love and the sweet reward of second chances. She had discovered the journal tucked away in a dusty corner of an antique shop during a recent visit, its faded inscription hinting at a tale waiting to be rediscovered. The elegant handwriting and heartfelt entries had immediately captivated her, pulling her into Olivia's world of longing and unexpected reunion. She leaned back in her armchair, a thoughtful expression on her face, the scent of aged paper and ink lingering in the air. What a delightful unraveling, she murmured, tapping her pen against her chin. To think this beautiful drama lay dormant for who knows how long. Now, her mind was already flitting to her next literary discovery. There was her cousin Beatrice, whose tumultuous marriage was a never-ending saga of whispered arguments and dramatic reconciliations. Surely her attic held a treasure trove of angst-ridden letters. Or perhaps her colleague Mr. Henderson, whose secret online dating life was an open secret in the office, ripe with potential for hilarious and heartbreaking anecdotes if she could just accidentally stumble upon his private correspondence. And then there was her neighbor Mrs. Gable, whose ongoing feud with the Homeowners Association over her prize-winning petunias had taken a decidedly dramatic turn involving a suspiciously misplaced garden gnome. Perhaps a peek into the HOA meeting minutes would yield some juicy details. Decisions. Yukio's eyes gleamed with anticipation. The world was full of untold stories waiting to be unearthed, and she, the fortunate finder of forgotten narratives, was ready to turn the next page. Thanks for hanging out. Hope you had as much fun listening as I did sharing this story. Because wow, that was a ride. If your jaw is still on the floor, don't worry, I'll help you pick it up next time. If you enjoyed the chaos, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, because trust me, there's always more where that came from.